Problem and project-based learning capstones promote active learning in introductory statistics, presented by Eric Matsuoka, March 15, 2015. The legacy model of learning involves students going to class, sitting down, listening and watching a lecturer in the front of the room present material, taking notes, viewing the notes over and over again at home, perhaps supplementing that with a textbook, and then coming back later to fill out answers on a paper-pencil exam, sometimes a multiple-choice paper-pencil exam, in fact. Much different from actively doing work which students find far more engaging than simply sitting and listening to lectures. Preferences are one thing, but results matter too. Active learning activities yield better retention than attending lectures. Trigo cited statistics that say people remember 50% of what they see and hear, but 90% of what they actually do. 90% is almost twice as much and is almost everything, whereas if people only see and hear things, they apparently forget half of it. One way of promoting active learning is to use problem-based learning, in which students plan and implement a solution to an instructor-assigned, rich, complex, open-ended problem that students are expected to navigate their way through. Students, instead of being told, do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, and so on, look at the problem that they're trying to solve, then plan, collaborate on, and implement a solution on their own. Definitely active learning as opposed to passively listening to directions and half-heartedly following the steps that were given. Problem-based learning promotes improved long-term retention, improved problem-solving skills, and higher-order thinking, according to Hung, Jonathan, and Liu. These are, of course, intuitively true, but it is nice to see that research actually backs it. Also importantly, problem-based learning provides some self-efficacy improvements to students. They become more self-directed in their learning, and they build self-confidence as well. Clearly, assigning a capstone statistical problem would promote active learning far better than an objective, especially multiple-choice final exam would. So, how could a capstone problem be implemented in an introductory statistics class? Well, since Facebook is very popular amongst many of the students in my college, it would be interesting to just assign them to figure out who uses Facebook. Problem-based learning problems are open-ended and deliberately are not as structured as the usual problem that you would see on a standardized exam. This gives students flexibility to look into multiple ways of measuring who uses Facebook and multiple ways of gathering data about who uses Facebook. As much of an improvement as problem-based learning is over standardized exams, project-based learning can generate even greater student engagement. Bell noted that project-based learning leverages students' natural curiosity by having them define a line of inquiry for themselves as opposed to being given a problem by the instructor. In project-based learning, students develop self-reliance through planning and organization of the entire project. They initiate the project itself, as well as plan and design strategies, execute them, and come up with their final product. So from start to finish, the students are engaged with the project, and because it is of the topic is of their choice, they will take more ownership of the project than they would if assigned a problem externally. So how would this be implemented in an introductory statistics class? Well, a project-based learning capstone could be to first assist students in forming rich statistical questions in their areas of interest. There's two components to this. First of all, students should be focusing on their area of interest to take more ownership over their project and over their work that is to come. Secondly, students may or may not realize how deep or shallow the questions that they ask are. Sometimes students might ask questions that go far beyond the practical limitations of data that's available. At other times, students might ask rather superficial questions that don't really require much depth in answering. So, the instructor should spend some time helping students form rich, interesting questions that can actually lend itself to project-based learning. once the students have developed these questions, they will figure out that they don't know some of the specific techniques of how they would go about addressing them. That's where, once again, the instructor comes in to facilitate these needs. Not to do the work for them per se, but to identify where they might be able to find assistance and how they might be able to use various resources that are available to them. So the instructor, as facilitator, sits on the side, helps when is needed, but the student, as mentioned before, takes complete ownership of the entire project from start to finish. This really provides us a much, much richer learning experience than simply answering some questions on a paper pencil exam.